Hello, and welcome to Sunday's Hotline Live with Record Sport. Keith, how's it going?
Oh, not bad.
Good weekend?
Quite quiet.
Aye.
Quite quiet.
Me too. Quiet until today.
Yeah.
Big game at Celtic Park.
I can see you're wearing your Celtic away cardigan.
Didn't even realise it. Could be a Hibs away one, to be fair, as well. Or Yeovil Town.
Yeah.
Aye, big win for Celtic.
Do you know it was an odd game?
Aye.
Celtic were in complete control of it without really getting up through the gears. I know it was like 1-0 till the dying seconds when Adam Ida gets a second, but they were in complete command.
Schmeichel didn't really... There was the one from Bowie in the first half.
He's had one save from Bowie in the first half from the throw-in, which probably would have been disputed.
If that had gone in, it would have been very interesting.
I don't know what VAR does in that situation. I would think that VAR would have had to get involved. Anyway.
Can they... sorry, go on, sorry. I was just thinking, can they get involved for throw-ins? I guess they can get involved for
at least a goal.
Aye, I guess so.
But, you know, in terms of the actual performance, I thought Celtic were really impressive without being brilliant Celtic.
Aye.
They just had complete control of the contest. That was a potentially really difficult cup tie for Celtic, and they made it look like an easy one. As I said, I think 1-0 with a few seconds to go suggests that it was a lot tighter than that. But really, in the general play, Celtic were in complete command. Maybe, apart from a 10-minute spell towards the end where they started to get a bit ragged and a bit of nerves started to kick in.
Yep.
But no, I just think all over the park, and especially Hibs were trying to get at Celtic with the press. You know, when Celtic's defenders were coming out with the ball, you could see trigger points, you could see them. And every time, Callum McGregor just made an angle, popped the ball into me, and through we go. And it's just, it makes it look, it's almost like a chess game sometimes when you're watching Callum McGregor dominate a midfield.
Aye.
He didn't have a brilliant game today, but he was the pivot, he was central to everything. Everything goes through him.
Yeah.
And when Hibs were trying to get at Celtic, to get on the front foot, he just makes the right angle. His brain just works on a different level. He just naturally goes into the right area, makes an angle, receives the pass, and off Celtic go again.
Yeah.
Comfortable.
Well, we're hoping to be joined by some of the Record Sport guys that are at Celtic Park, and should say a little bit later on in the show, we'll hopefully have a bit of an update on the Rangers takeover news from the man who broke the story himself.
Yes, you will.
Wonderful. I mean, in the meantime, just on the game itself, look, I don't even know what to say about Celtic's dominance. I mean, they haven't conceded again at home. Brendan Rodgers now
has never lost a Scottish Cup tie.
20 games in the Scottish Cup, and he's not lost any of them.
It's astonishing.
Look, I know it's Celtic. I know they're big, richest team in the country, best team in the country, but that's still astonishing.
It's a staggering record.
That's mad.
And by the way, it'll be 22 before the end of this season.
You think so?
Yeah.
Can't really see past them, can you?
Listen, nobody can get near them. They are miles out in front. They're what's the lead now? 16 points further.
Rangers got a game in hand, but 16
ahead of everybody else in the league. There's just a massive gulf opening up, and that's why I think some Rangers fans were quite upset when I described Rangers as they've become an irrelevance in Scottish football terms. But the reason I was making that point was I said the only thing that can change this for Rangers now would be regime change.
Aye.
That was the point that I was making. And now, here they are in this position.
On the brink of it.
Yep. And that I don't think that automatically it's going to level the playing field right from the get-go. I think it's going to have to take a bit of hard work for Rangers to close the gap. But this gives them potentially the chance. It makes it a realistic proposition. Whereas the way things were going, Rangers were just going down the way, Celtic are getting further and further ahead of them, and it starts to look like a gap that isn't going to be bridgeable.
People were saying it was like Espanyol, Barca, Everton, Liverpool.
Well, and that's the point. That's what Rangers had rendered themselves fairly irrelevant in the whole big picture. But clearly there's a lot going on, as we'll discuss later. Mm-hmm. And as I said to you, it gives them an opportunity to do something to redress the balance and level the playing field. Because right now, put it this way: if you're in the hat for the last four, your Hearts and Aberdeen right now, the very idea of getting Celtic in the semi-final is just it's just a gut punch, isn't it?
Well, the other one, obviously, tomorrow night is Livy and St Johnstone.
Yeah.
I mean, You can't see past. I did say earlier, I'm not blowing my own horn here, right? I did say earlier in the season, I could see Aberdeen winning the Scottish Cup, just purely because it's been such a bizarre campaign.
And are you sticking with that?
Probably not, no. But they've had such a weird season. That would just be typical Scottish football if they went home with the I mean,
what would be typical Scottish football is Celtic win another treble.
Aye, that's
typical
true,
Scottish football. And that's what you're
what it's become now.
That's what you're looking at. And you know, I'm sure that whether they get, you know, Aberdeen or Hearts in the semi-final, or St Johnstone or Livingston, people will try their best, but it's just not going to be good enough, especially at Hampden, which is home from Celtic. You know, I think now that this treble is pretty much home and hosed. I just don't see any other conclusion to the season.
If you're watching at home, get involved in the comments section below. Let us know your thoughts on Celtic's win today. And just going back to the game, I thought Hibs deserved a lot of credit, and so did the Hibs fans. I mean, 7,000 in the away end, the biggest away end at Celtic Park since 2018. And as you say, in the last sort of 10 minutes, they didn't really...
Do you know what? Hibs did well to hang in.
Aye.
They did really well to
hang in. And you did
in.
sense, like, when it lasted, it's only 1-0, you know, one chance.
I never really sensed it.
No, I know. They don't have a chance, but I just mean...
Yeah, but
you never know.
Yeah, and Celtic did get a little bit ragged towards the end of it, but no, I mean, Hibs did just about everything that Hibs could possibly do to stay in the contest, but without ever making it a contest, if you know what I mean. They stayed in it, and I tell you what, my man crush for Big Iredale continues.
He's a good player.
He is a proper player.
He's a really good player.
A really, really top defender.
His last-ditch tackle today on...
Kuhn.
It was Kuhn, you're right, in the first half. That was a great tackle.
Yeah. And also, I think he made one mistake in the 90 minutes. He was loose with a pass down the left-hand side, down the left flank, went out for a throw-in. I'm actually thinking in all the games that I've been watching Hibs recently, that's maybe the only mistake I can think of him making. He's phenomenally tight in terms of his defensive attributes. He's strong, he's quite quick over the ground, good in the air, robust, resilient, everything you're looking for in a central defender. You just, you know, the Hibs have done really well there, and I don't think it's any coincidence that the turnaround in form came when David Gray went to the three at the back and Iredale came into the starting lineup.
No, absolutely.
I mean, you now couldn't name a Hibs team without him as one of the first names in the sheet. No,
definitely not.
Really impressed by him.
Aye. And the other thing that I think is worth touching on, I know we talked about it a little bit last week, Dyson Maeda. Look, we've said all the superlatives you can, 27 goals now for the season. I think now, though, it's a massive summer for him.
Did anybody ever look at Dyson Maeda when he first came to Scotland and see him as a 30-goal striker?
No chance.
Because that's what he's going to be.
We used to say, if he could finish, he wouldn't be here. That makes me think maybe he's not going to be here in the summer.
Well, there's a danger of that, because Brendan Rodgers has worked on all the parts of his game that needed worked on. He's improved them. His composure in the final third. He's unrecognisable from the player who arrived here under Ange Postecoglou. Unrecognisable. I mean, yes, he misses one at the back post in the second half today when he's stretching. He probably should score that, but you'll let him away with that.
95th minute, he was still chasing down the goalie and stuff.
He's worked all the stuff that made him a special player in the first place. That's still there, but Brendan Rodgers has added to it, and he's made him a more rounded, refined, dangerous central attacker or wide player. You can play all across the three. I think there will be interest in him, but from what I'm hearing, I think Rio Hatate might be looking as if he's done his shift here. From what I'm hearing, Maeda really settled. His family are settled. I don't think he'll be in any rush to leave.
Aye.
But it does depend. I mean, somebody could come in with something silly.
Aye, just with the World Cup a year after the summer, and he's 2 years in his deal. But look, you mentioned refined, dangerous, potent. All the words that I would use to describe Record Sports Andy Newport. Andy.
Dangerous Andy Newport.
How's it going?
You've clearly seen me in my playing days. Lethal.
Absolutely.
That's all I'm going to say.
Andy, we just talked a little bit about the game, but massive win for Celtic. Never really looked in doubt, did it?
Straightforward. It did get a wee bit angsty around here the last sort of maybe 5-10 minutes. Just the fact it was one goal, but I mean at that point, I mean, I think Celtic really should have been further ahead. Obviously, there'd been that chance. I think Keith just mentioned there, Maeda at the back post where he should score. Schlupp has one that sneaks past in the second half, and then Jordan Smith. I mean, I think I really feel for him because he put in a terrific performance in goals for Hibs today.
By the way, Andy,
so
by the way, see the save he makes for Celtic's opening goal. I mean, he's actually so unlucky because he's made 3 top saves in that first half, and that was one of them, the save from Kuhn. But Maeda was so alert and he got in for the finish.
The one for McGregor as well, 4 minutes in. I mean, the power on it, for the fact the reactions just to get down, and it's such a strong wrist on it. As I say, I think he was hard done up by today because he really played his part in Hibs' performance. But straightforward. I mean, Celtic just dominated the ball from start to finish. I mean, Hibs were having to put in so much effort, so much work rate just to keep Celtic at bay. And Celtic didn't cut them open too many times, but that was all because of the work rate Hibs were having to put in. But the time that they did get the ball forward up to Kieran Bowie and to gone out of my head.
Martin Boyle.
Sorry, Martin Boyle. They had no legs to get up and support them, and it just became a wave after a wave. So, Celtic were more than worth their victory today. They were very good.
I think the Nicky Cadden substitution, the Nicky Cadden injury was just one of those. That was a bit of a hammer blow, and at that point you thought it's probably not going to be Hibs' day. Was there any news, Andy, afterwards on how Nicky Cadden is?
No, David Gray did get asked about it. He just said it was too early to tell. But the good thing was that he obviously walked off the pitch, so he was taking that as a sign of encouragement that he felt his hamstring just sort of tighten up rather than properly go. So I mean, he's been, as I say, such a huge player. There's been chat of him perhaps being, maybe even an outside chance of Scotland call-up, just given how well he's played. So if that were to sort of fall through, then you'd have to feel sorry for him. But he's certainly been terrific this season. So that'd be a blow if he was going to be out for any length of time.
What was Brendan Rodgers' reaction to it? Andy, was he pleased with the level of performance, or did he think that he made heavy weather of it towards the end?
No, very pleased. I mean, just a bit like I was saying there. I mean, we're not for some, a couple of close calls, a couple of great saves. It could have been a much bigger margin of victory. You know what Brendan Rodgers like. I mean, he's never going to come in and really slaughter his players when they've been good. He spent more of the pressure, sort of second half of the pressure, sort of looking ahead towards next week's game. Says he's ready for it. Expects he's not expecting too many changes from Rangers. Obviously, with the change of management there under Barry Ferguson, admitted his team was sort of miles off it last time at Ibrox. What was the phrase he used? Rangers stole our performance that day. I think I'm not sure if he was referring to they stole the style of play, or just took the ability for Celtic to win that game away from them. But he was talking about Barry Ferguson's going to bring a lot of passion, a lot of energy, and he says, but don't worry, we'll be exactly the same. So that's shaped to be a good game next week. But in terms of consequences to it, not much. I mean, Celtic are home and host pretty much 5 games now away from the treble. 3 wins in the league, 2 wins in the Scottish Cup, and what is that, a 6th treble in the space of 9 years? It's just been remarkable consistency. I mean, he even referenced that until 2016. I think it was at 6 trebles the club had in over 100 years. And obviously now they've added, they're cracking on to what's this now, must be. Your maths better than this. It'll be ninth one now. So
it'll be the 6th treble in 9 years.
Yes,
and 9th in total. And see, just on the dominance, the numbers are incredible. Before Martin O'Neill came, Celtic hadn't won a treble in 32 years. Yeah. And even going into the 90s, there was 6 years when Celtic didn't win any trophy. Mm-hmm. I mean, they're pretty much since the start of the new century, Celtic's dominance has been remarkable.
We've said that since and that's why I use the word irrelevant to where Rangers are in the grand scheme of things right now, and it has been a story of irrelevance pretty much since the turn of the millennium, and that's why it's going to take something groundbreaking to change the sort of monopoly that Celtic have got just now. Andy, you mentioned the Old Firm game next weekend. Obviously you were over in Istanbul. Do you think that Barry Ferguson's going to continue with this 3 central defenders set up going into the next 2 games. Obviously, I mean, what a baptism of fire. 2 games head to head against Jose Mourinho and then go to play Celtic Park under Brendan Rodgers.
I know.
What's the smart money saying?
I could see him doing that. He was sort of asked over in Istanbul, obviously I was there for Record Sport, and he was asked, is this something he's going to employ more regularly, or is this just a horses for courses thing? And he sort of hinted at the latter. This was the setup they thought could get a result against Fenerbahce. But when you look at it, I mean, just having that 3-man defence up against Celtic's 3-man front line, and obviously having the extra protection with the wing backs, I could see that working.
Is that Brendan?
I'm not sure who it is, but you could see that being an advantage. But obviously, if you put somebody else into defence, it takes away something else from elsewhere in the pitch. And Rangers, they got their joy at Ibrox last time because they were able to press and sort of pin Celtic in at times. And so if you did that, does that? I mean, you then really are just playing on a counter attack in front, and you're hoping that you can hit in the counter, you can hit in the breakaway. I didn't think Fenerbahce pinned Rangers in all that much at times. There was moments where they pushed them back, and Rangers were able to spring forward. I think Celtic here would have Rangers camped in, and eventually that kind of pressure just tells. So I think the Rangers, if they're going to come here, as you saw, Hibs did something similar with a back 5 today, and you end up having to work so hard
giving up the middle of the pitch.
Yeah, cover so many spaces that you just don't have the legs to get forward. I think if Rangers get any ambitions of getting a result here, they have to have some way of asking questions of Celtic at the other end. So I'm at all if they went back to the sort of usual setup they've been playing with, that sort of 4-2-3-1.
Do you agree with that, Keith? Or think you'll stick with the new blueprint?
I don't know.
It's a tricky one.
It's hard. It's impossible to tell. I think he might stick with it. Stick with pretty much the same game plan for Thursday night. I don't see him. He might change people within the personnel, but I think he'll go similar on Thursday night. But that's an interesting one. What does he then do for Celtic Park?
Especially if it's successful again on Thursday night.
Yeah. But I think that wouldn't have come naturally to make that change, and obviously it involved a lot of information for the players, a big change in the way that they set up. But he did it because he identified, he'd watched about, I think he said 9 or 10 of Fenerbahce's recent games, and he looked at it, and tactically he felt that setup would give Rangers the best opportunity, and he was right.
The remarkable thing, Keith, is that he told us over after the game on Thursday night that he only decided to do it on the Tuesday.
Yeah.
So he basically had a training session the Tuesday to implement it, a training session on the Wednesday morning before they flew, and then whatever sort of video sessions they could get to the team, or sitting down with the guys individually and then giving them instructions. So to put in the performance that he did with basically 2 training sessions working in that shape, it's pretty impressive in itself.
I'll go one extra than that, Andy. See, on the Tuesday they had a really intense training session, and I think the sports scientist department was getting extremely worried because their computers were going up in smoke. But I don't think he worked on that. I think it was a high intensity training session. I don't think it was to do with this is how we're going to set up for the game. I think it was more that was, and players hate it, sessions when it's just shape. I think he did about half an hour on shape, and that can sometimes...
A bit laborious.
Yeah, you can lose the players with that. So I think he stayed away from that on that Tuesday training session. So maybe on the Wednesday or whatever, they start to work towards it. But clearly, all the information got across because everybody filled out their instructions to a letter, pretty much, didn't they?
Oh, I mean, Andy, as we say, you were there in Istanbul. You witnessed it firsthand. Robbo, in the comment section, simply says, Rangers are through. That's a fact. I mean, it's not literally a fact so far, but is it a sentiment that you share, Andy? Do you think they will get through?
I think they'll get through, but I think they've still got a huge 90 minutes ahead of them. I mean, it's Fenerbahce can get an early goal, then
changes everything.
At the end of the day, this is a Rangers team that we have been questioning its character, its mindset all season. Times when the inability to handle pressure. So if Fenerbahce with Jose Mourinho in the second line can come in and get an early goal, then well, what happens then? Well, what I'll say is I think obviously we've all spoken that they're far better suited to playing counter-attacking football, and one thing that Fenerbahce must do is come and score at Ibrox, so they have to come and open up. And what we saw on Thursday night was that when they opened up, Rangers were going through them like a knife through hot butter. I mean, a matter of millimetres, if it could have been a 5-1 victory for Rangers. Obviously, Fenerbahce had a few chances, some decent saves from Jack Butland, but it wasn't flattering Rangers to say that they could have won that by an even bigger margin.
Oh,
so
definitely. Yeah.
So
Mourinho said himself.
Aye.
yeah. So listen, they've got a big job in them, and but they've got one foot in the quarterfinals, but they now need to take that second step and plant both feet on.
I laughed at a moment ago because Marzuno in the comment section points out, remember, Rangers have the home disadvantage.
Yeah.
And the way they've been playing recently. it's a fair point, to be fair.
Yep,
but
absolutely.
This will be a bit different, you'd have thought, on Thursday night.
You're looking, there's Andy there in an empty Celtic Park after the fans have all gone, and the places can feel pretty hollow and empty, these big cavernous stadiums. And I think Ibrox has felt that even with people in it throughout the season. You just know on Thursday night it's going to be a completely different,
different ballgame.
environment. The place comes alive on these Thursday nights. Certainly, maybe not so much this season, because the domestic scene has been such an ordeal for the Rangers supporters. But you feel there's a reconnect here with Barry Ferguson and the fans, and you would imagine, Andy, the place will be absolutely bouncing.
I mean,
domestic on Thursday.
Yeah, domestically, Ibrox has been a pretty soulless place this season. It's been an angry place, but the European games have been something different entirely, just because we know, as we've labelled the point, that Rangers are a completely different animal domestically as they are to when they're in Europe. Just talking about the atmosphere created, I mean, just obviously being here today with the 7,000 Hibs fans, I mean, it was a brilliant spectacle in that sense. I mean, just having that big corner, old firm allocation, if you want to call it that, and it just makes me think. Obviously, next week there's going to be 2,500 Rangers fans in here, and a first step. I think that's how Brendan Rodgers sort of referred to it today. So a first step back towards getting normality. Whether we ever reach that, I'm not so sure, but certainly it's going to be great to see from a spectacle point of view, just having something look like a proper away support for these derbies. Obviously, you're going to have something similar, 2,000, something like that, for the game at Ibrox after the split. So, from a selling Scottish football point of view, we need this. These away fan lockouts, or the 800 sort of small slivers of tickets that were given up for the last 4, 5, 6 years, just haven't cut it. I think we really need the big away supports to give the game, the derby, that crackle back. And given the noise that was made here today with the Hibs fans, and they really did play their part, and they can be their team. They ran themselves into the ground, but the team certainly didn't disgrace themselves. But the fans really did themselves proud with their performance today. So I think that from that point of view, I'm looking forward to seeing, something a step back towards normality in that sense.
See, sorry, I should have asked this about 10 minutes ago, right? But I feel like I should ask it. On the game, Andy, Kieran Bowie,
Yeah.
Swanee on the Hotline Live last week, maybe even the week before last, tipped him for a Scotland call-up. Said that he thinks he could potentially be in for Greece, if not Greece, down the line. Just watching him in the flesh today, Andy, do you think there's anything in that?
Do you know, I liked him. I liked what I saw of him last week, a couple of weeks back when I was at Easter Road for when Hibs won that one. I liked his link-up plays, big and strong, physical. I thought
He holds the ball up well, doesn't he?
Yeah. But I must say, I thought, again, he wasn't getting much back up in terms of guys getting up alongside him. Anytime the ball did played up to him, he just had Carter Vickers, all of them at a rash. And I think a performance today shows you Carter Vickers, just how good he is, because he's up against a guy, whatever it is, 6'3", 6'4". He's been down in England, knows what it's like to play against sort of big, strong centre backs. Carter Vickers had him in his pocket. I mean, I just thought. I mean, that's not to say Kieran Bowie's a bad player. I thought, I think there's something there that can be worked upon. But I just thought Carter Vickers was sheer class today.
Yeah,
he strolled it. He's such a bull of a physique, and his positioning of where he puts his body, how he gets himself balanced before getting into these duels, and his aggression once he's in them. I just thought he never gave that was partly the reason why Hibs just couldn't get a foothold, because they're sitting in, soaking up pressure. They win the ball, steal it back, they throw it up forward to him. I suppose Hibs are looking forward just to get one or two passes and then maybe release Martin Boyle in behind. And they just couldn't get that sort of platform to play off of Bowie because Carter Vickers never allowed it. So, it was a hard one sort of looking, because it wasn't a flashy Celtic performance today. They did sort of they did struggle to sort of cut through Hibs for spells, even though they had a lot of the ball. It was a difficult one trying to sort of pick a man of the match today. I thought Engels was good. I thought Jeffrey Slope was very excellent as well. I thought Carter Vickers was great too. So it was a sort of mostly 7s out of 10, but I thought that those three get 8s out of 10 for Celtic. I thought they were very good.
That's interesting, Andy, because it leads me on to my next question for you. What did you make of Jota, and does Jota start against Rangers?
I think Celtic's, I know this might be harsh on Adam Reeder because he came on and scored the goal today, but I think Celtic's best three, the best three that suit their style of play in terms of that front line is Jota, Maeda and Kuhn. I just think they bring so much movement, so much trickery, so much threat, so much pace. They're capable of ripping a backline apart in a way that Rangers don't ever really do. They're quite static. They play in straight lines, where Celtic is just this perpetual motion, playing in circles, guys swapping positions, slipping in. The amount of times you would just see today the ball go out to Nicholas Kuhn and it's an inside run for Arthur Johnson, and you've got a Hibs back three just going, we're not expecting this guy to come here. That's not how any other team in this league plays. You don't get your fullback coming, making a dart and running it in off the flank. That's just, they are a different level from anything in this country. So, in terms of Jota, I think it's obviously that he's been spoken about his lack of fitness. He's obviously not been playing much, and he's getting there. He was okay today, and I thought he was fine. A couple of nice moments, but Celtic didn't have to be, as I say, at their very best to win today. They were comfortable playing in second gear.
But Maeda does like playing on James Tavernier on Derby Day, doesn't he? So, I wonder.
Interesting one as well.
I think it's an interesting one. I think does he stick with Maeda wide, in which case does Adam Maeda come into the starting line? I think that's a decision that Celtic need to make.
No.
I'm not convinced that I'm certain of the answer yet.
This takes us back to our earlier discussion about whether does Barry Ferguson change it up. I mean, the one thing that sort of kind of did for Philippe Clement is that he would just stick by the one sort of format. I think we've already seen that, Barry Ferguson isn't going to get caught into that. What's that phrase? I think I've used it before on the Hotline Live. Doing the same thing, definition of madness, doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. I think if that is what's playing into Barry Ferguson's mindset, is that Maeda up against Tavernier, then he might be minded to go, no, actually we need to factor that in. There's times last season a lot of Rangers fans were going, we need to change to a back three and give Tavernier some extra protection with Maeda sort of peeling off that left hand side. So it's certainly going to be interesting to see how it all plays out next weekend.
Aye. Absolutely. Andy, thank you so much for joining us on the Hotline Live. We always appreciate it. I'm sure I'll be pestering you to make an appearance in the upcoming week.
Sorry, busy boys have got stuff on. So.
I'll negotiate with your agent.
Cheers, bye.
Cheers, Andy.
Cheers, Andy.
Ta-ra.
Andy Newport there from Celtic Park. This one, Rangers easy okay, says Keith. Mm-hmm. I fancy us to finish the job on Thursday night, and wouldn't surprise me if we go there next Sunday and get a result. This is when the team thrives, when we're the underdogs and no one expects anything. Do you go along with that?
Look, I'm afraid you're just going to have to draw a separation here. What's gone before has gone before. This is now, Barry Ferguson has got into this dressing room. He's clearly getting something back from the players. The players are responding to him. So what we've seen, what evidence we've seen of Rangers up until this point, and I know, yes, granted, they then throw one in against Motherwell where they're just looking like they've looked all season. I think that he's had a bit of time to build a relationship with these players. I think that tactically they'll have looked at him and the plan that he put out for Fenerbahce away, and they'll think, this wee guy's got something. I wouldn't use what's happened before as a measuring stick this season, even though it's the same group of players. I'm just fascinated to see. I'm fascinated to see, you know, and by the way, don't think for a single second that Brendan Rodgers and Celtic won't be all over. And I know that they're miles clear and that they've got the league in the bag already, but they'll be looking to lay down a marker of their own. It's a new, if Barry Ferguson is here for the long haul, if he's just here till the end of the season, that's yet to be determined. But Brendan Rodgers will want to lay down a marker.
Especially after the last game.
Especially after
that. Rodgers will be furious about that. In the comment section, Sleekit says, the 49ers are going to spend 100 million in Rangers this summer. We are so back, baby. I mean, I would probably wager that that's not going to happen.
I would think that you're probably correct.
But is there any updates you can give us on the proposed US takeover?
All I can tell you is that Andrew Kavanagh, the guy who's the principal driver of the proposal, he was in Istanbul at the Sukru Saracoğlu Stadium on Thursday night to watch the match. I find that interesting. I find it interesting that he's in Europe. And I wonder if there's the potential for him, having gone all the way to Istanbul to watch the first leg, wonder if he might just be about to turn up at Ibrox and surprise everybody on Thursday night to watch the second leg. And he's been at Ibrox on a couple of occasions, but he was a non-person. Nobody knew who he was. Right. It didn't carry anything. He could come and go as he pleased. If Andrew Kavanagh walks into the director's box at Ibrox Stadium on Thursday night, he'll have 50,000 sets of eyes on.
Aye.
Everybody will realise that who he is and what he's there to do. Now, I believe, obviously, he was around the official party at the match on Thursday night. You know, we'd already revealed that he'd been to Old Trafford for a previous Europa League, so clearly he's got big interest in it. He's keeping an eye on it. I find it fascinating. I also find it fascinating, and here's a point, and I mentioned this in my column for tomorrow. Andrew Kavanagh was at Ibrox on January the 12th, I think it was, for a 3-1 win over St Johnstone. Now, that was the day that some Rangers fans were so furious with the current regime that they staged a walkout and organised protest against them, calling for the heads, calling for change, without knowing, of course, that the very guy that might be able to facilitate that change was sitting in the boardroom, or sitting in the director's box. Now, the point is this: that was Rangers hurtling towards rock bottom, right? When you've got support which is in revolt, people walking out, booing, fans booing each other, the whole thing. It doesn't get much more critical than that, and he was there for it, and he saw it. And that's his last experience of Ibrox. Now, if he then turns up on Thursday night, and he walks in, and this place is pandemonium, and there's a reconnection between the support and the team, that looks much more like the football club that I think he wants to be involved in. Right. And that might be interesting as well, because I would imagine there'll be Barry Ferguson's name will be getting the treatment. And if Andrew Kavanagh looks at that and equates this disconnect that he witnessed in January and compares it to what it might look and sound like on Thursday night, well, I think that gives a bit of momentum to, if Barry Ferguson has got ambitions to do this for more than 3 months, if Kavanagh identifies him as the guy that's reconnected the whole thing, then it could get interesting.
It's potentially both for the club, but Barry Ferguson, one of the biggest weeks in his career, perhaps.
Oh, without
and he not
doubt.
Just managerial career, his entire career.
Without doubt, yeah. And I think if Barry was here, he'd say much the same himself. I mean, he had a glittering career as a player, played top matches, won trophies, played in the Champions League, captained the club that he grew up supporting. All that's massive. Now he's the manager of Rangers, and it happened in such a hurry that I'm not sure if he would have had time until after Thursday night to actually reflect upon how did that just happen. I am now manager of Rangers and I've just beaten Jose Mourinho. It is mental. The whole situation is almost absurd, and yet here he is. And and people saying it's almost like they use a swear word, just Rangers men, and it's a kind of there's a negative to it. Why did you go, resort to this? you know, just bringing back guys that have been through the door before. I would tend to disagree in this instance. I actually look at it and I think somewhere along the way, Rangers have lost their DNA. They've lost touch with what they've always been as a football club. Standards have eroded behind the scenes. I think that Barry Ferguson and his staff, as I said to you, I think they will have been absolutely shocked when they walked into Auchenhowe for the first time and looked at what it looks like today and compared it to what they knew.
Yeah.
The standards, the professionalism, everything. And they'll see this now as a chance, whether it's 3 months or whether it's longer. I think that in Barry Ferguson's mind, it would be, if he's not going to get this dream scenario, and let's not rule that out just yet, but even if it is just the 3 months, I think he would like his legacy to be, well, do you know that place? At least it resembles something much more like what it was when they first walked in through the doors. I think there's a lot at play here. There's a lot at stake. It's absolutely fascinating.
Massive week.
If Barry Ferguson was to get another result against Fenerbahce, knock Jose Mourinho out of the Europa League, reach the quarterfinals of the tournament, and then somehow go to Celtic Park and put on a performance against Brendan Rodgers, I think if he comes through that, 6-7 days,
if he did that, that'd be remarkable.
He then, there is no question in my mind, becomes a genuine candidate.
Aye. Oh, of course.
A real serious candidate.
I would, just my opinion, he would surely be right at the forefront. Not just a candidate. It
would start to become difficult for the American owners to look at it and think about doing anything else.
Exactly.
And I think what that comment I was saying there about Rangers losing their DNA, I think it's important for them right now. They've gone through, there's so many chancers and fly-by nights and people with pie charts and PowerPoint presentations that have come and gone through that place. Nobody knows what they are anymore.
No.
And I think that these guys, they are ideally placed because they're the link between what they knew, how they knew that club conducted itself and how things were run when they were successful and they were winning trophies and they were relevant to how it is now. And I think they might represent Rangers' best chance of starting to repair all the damage that's been done over all these years of interlopers and guys that come in and never really had a feel for the place and never really got it. And I know that's a bit cliched and the dinosaur thing, you get it, these guys get it, but they actually understand. It's not about getting it, it's about understanding. In order for Rangers to be successful, this was the set of standards that were the basic requirement. They are so far away from that right now.
It's night and day.
Yeah.
A few more comments. Mick simply says, I hope he gets the gig. Rangers is he okay, says Greta Steinson was in Istanbul as well, Keith. The technical director of the 49ers football operations.
Yeah, I know who he is.
So they're definitely doing their due diligence on the squad. That's interesting as well.
Yeah. I mean, he's not a major player in the whole thing. But certainly he has a role to play. He's an employee. He's not the guy driving the deal or anything. Andrew Kavanagh is the guy that all eyes should be on. But yes, that it does show you that 49ers are across this. They are monitoring stuff and they'll be reaching their own conclusions.
We're getting a wee bit of stick here. John chimes in saying, "What next? Is Barry going to turn water into wine in part of the Red Sea?" Now, look, all I'm saying is, the next week, if he gets by Fenerbahce and puts on a show against Brendan Rodgers, that is a monumental. I would qualify it by saying I think they'll beat Fenerbahce. I think they'll get by them. I think Celtic's a different kettle of fish.
It'll be fascinating.
Aye.
It'll just be fascinating. And it's a hard one to call right now what happens at Celtic Park next weekend, because what's the Rangers team going to look like? Is he going to try and pull something out of the bag tactically? Is it, there's so much yet water to go under the bridge. How's his team going to look after another 90 minutes against Fenerbahce?
Aye.
Or 120 minutes, possibly?
The centre-backs is that size.
Can he wrap Liam Balogun and Cotton Will, John Suter? There's a lot to take into account. And we've got nothing from Barry Ferguson to measure against. So you would say, look, well, previously this or that.
Can't predict it.
There has been no previous.
Aye.
So it's really difficult.
Right, aye. That's a fair point. It will be a fascinating week. And just before we finish, just to finish on the Scottish Cup, because we've obviously talked about it. Aberdeen got past Queen's Park, obviously 4-1. The Queen's Park run is over.
Yeah.
And Hearts get by Dundee on Friday night. And we've
By the
said-
way, I think there'll be Rangers fans there just shaking their head at that one.
I know.
But there you go. And good luck to Aberdeen. They did a professional job and they're through.
Aye. You've obviously already said Celtic can't really see any way past them, can you?
No.
No.
No. Listen, it's a treble. It's done.
Okay, cool. Cheers. Thanks for watching.
But that doesn't mean that the process of getting there becomes any less enjoyable for the Celtic supporters, for the players.
Aye.
And and all these teams will go into the 4 teams will go into the pot for the semi-final draw. As I said to you, 3 of them will just be desperate for anyone but Celtic. But again, it's Hampden, it's a semi-final, you're allowed to dream.
Aye.
And it's exciting for all the teams that are going to be involved in that.
It's mad how Celtic, I know we said it, but it's mad how much Celtic have turned winning a treble into an expectation.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
It was once in a generational thing.
Brendan Rodgers would have started this season with a list of targets, and a domestic treble would have been the minimum.
Aye, the minimum.
That's the minimum.
Which is a bit crazy when you think about it.
Which is incredible. And it just tells you about the state of the monopoly that Celtic have got on the complete stranglehold on the domestic scene in this country.
The final quarter-final is obviously tomorrow night, Livy against St Johnstone. And we'll be back tomorrow night before then to do this all again. Thank you so much for all of the comments in the comment section. And as I say, we'll be back tomorrow. Keith, it's always a pleasure.
Yes, I'll see you tomorrow.
And thanks for watching at home. Cheers.